he's sleeping in the middle of the night and webs his bed.
He webs his bed.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Extremely Low Budget Podcast. With me this week, I have the clever names because we recorded this already. We've got your friendly neighborhood Spider D-Man.
There it is.
The amazing Alex. And the spectacular Kyle.
There you go.
This is the month of November, the month of thanks. And this is just cringy for me to say. I made myself uncomfortable.
Say it. What do you have to say? This month's the month of thanks. We're talking about things we're thankful for. Something about how we'd never be the person we are today if not for these spider movies.
I'm so thankful for everybody I have in my life.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
I forgot you said that too. We got great families and we got houses over our heads. Thankful for movies.
All I gotta say is this month is a month that we're thankful for. Things that we're thankful for.
Things that we're thankful for, and the first thing that we're thankful for is Sam Raimi, Tobey Mcguire, and the motherfucking Spider-Man trilogy.
I'm glad you didn't say Kristen Dunst because I am not thankful for her character in
We're all
these movies.
we're thankful for every last second of these movies, Derek. Every last decision that was made, every last bit of dialogue uttered
Topher Grace.
from underneath Tobey Maguire's fat nose.
Yeah, he doesn't have that
We're
fat of a nose.
Oh, he has a fat nose.
Tobey Maguire?
I know
Tobey Maguire's come over.
Every close-up you get to, his nose just looks so big.
I didn't notice that.
Especially
thankful
like
for
the
Aunt May.
undershots, it looks huge.
Yeah, why was Aunt May grandma at age? I didn't realize it until I was watching these movies again that everyone made such a big deal out of Marissa Tomei's Aunt May being so young, but it only hit me just watching these Raimi movies that it actually makes sense for her to be that young. It doesn't make sense for her to be this old.
I mean, technically she should be like the age of his mother.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Because
saying.
She's not
They're
his grandma.
sisters.
Yeah, it's supposed to be his mother's
Unless
sister.
she's, a much older sister.
Well, she'd have to be in this case.
How old is Spider-Man in this one? Isn't he?
He's graduated from high school in
20.
the first one.
I'm going to put him at about 20.
Well, he
in
graduates.
the first one.
Yeah, he graduates from high school in the first one.
What if she's great?
I'm 7.
What if she's a great aunt?
A great aunt?
Yeah, a great aunt.
I guess. It could be.
What is Aunt May's relation to like?
She's supposed to be just his mom's sister.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Well, I mean, it's never explicitly stated in the Raimi movies, but it is stated in the Amazing Spider-Man movies. It's not stated in the MCU. So really,
if it's not stated in the MCU, she could be like a great aunt. Because I know my great aunts, I just call them aunt.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that might just be for me. I'm just making assumptions.
I don't know. You got this kid, he's, like I'm saying, kids in my graduating class, 17, 18 years old. This kid, he's not 20 when he graduates. He's about 17, 18 years old.
Makes sense.
So.
And he had just graduated in the first one?
Yeah,
I don't remember now.
He hasn't even graduated at the
Oh,
start
no,
of the
that's
movie.
right. Yeah.
There's like a shot of them at graduation.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
It's okay, I missed it too when I watched it. Derek and I watched the first one together and I was like, did they just graduate in this movie?
Mm-hmm.
I was putting away Halloween decorations for some of it. But
Yeah, okay.
Derek, and then I was trying to keep Derek awake for the rest of it.
Yeah, I was dozing. So if you haven't figured it out, I don't know.
No, I said it.
Yeah.
I said it.
Yeah. We're thankful for the Sam Raimi movies.
Sam Raimi.
Sam Raimi Spiderman.
Spider-Man movies.
So as we talked about in an earlier recording of this that's now been lost in the ethereal realm.
We love you, Jacoby.
Alex and I were really in the age group that grew up with these movies. Derek was in the age group slightly behind growing up with these movies. Derek fell into the category of the Hulk, the X-Men, and Daredevil. Well, Alex and I were probably more in the Batman and Robin era, the Teen Titans on TV era, and the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, I definitely remember watching these Sam Raimi Spider-Mans.
Oh yeah,
and of
I do
course
too.
I was too young.
On that thing right there, there's a Polaroid picture of me posing with Spider-Man with my Spider-Man doll right behind you.
What?
So
On here?
yeah, it's like
I
right
don't
where you
know.
just pointed behind those passes.
Everyone gets up to look.
Oh, I think it's that.
Yeah.
That would be the one.
Yeah.
With your little dollar store Spider-Man, like.
Look at that mask. Whoever that is dressed as
I think
Spider-Man.
I had that exact same Spider-Man toy too.
That little doll.
Yeah, he had like twistable arms and stuff. You couldn't really pose him very well, but his like arms twisted.
Yeah, I had a ton of those Spider-Man
Yeah.
toys. I think at this point there's maybe one that I still have down in our basement.
From Raimi movies?
Yeah.
We don't have it anymore.
No. Well, I know like his foot broke off and probably both of his hands, but
And that's probably why we got rid of him.
yeah.
No one wants a handless Spider-Man.
You can't do much with that.
Yeah. You can make up a story for why he doesn't have a
Like
foot.
a quadriplegic Spider-Man. Also, he starts like shooting webs out of his ass like a real spider. That's how he gets around in
Has
his
to
wheelchair.
adapt somehow.
Yeah. Starts biting people. I'll get you, and he just like chomps on them. Alright, well.
2002. A monumental year for superhero film.
Right.
I don't know when the Batman series had ended, so there was that four film run of Batman movies.
Oh, yeah, the earlier ones.
Yeah, it was 2 Burton movies, then Batman and Robin, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin.
I had never really watched those either.
That was definitely, I was real into those.
Yeah,
as a
me
kid.
too.
But we could. But the other Batman movies hadn't come out yet,
Right.
Because those were what you said, 2005.
2005.
I mean, we were still pretty young, but
Yeah.
I never watched Batman Begins, and then when Dark Knight came out, I remember there was a lot of hype around that,
Yeah.
and I went and saw it.
We definitely saw Dark Knight in theaters.
So I remember being
Yeah.
really into the Dark Knight ones.
Mm-hmm.
So
Those earlier Batman movies, though, as we talked about in the original recording, about how certain superhero movies were a bit too dark
Mhm.
for our taste. The early 2 were too dark for
Yeah,
me.
the Burton ones.
The Batman Forever and Robin were light enough that I liked them. And they're kind of in the same vein as the X-Men movies, which is why those were kind of the category that I liked.
Yeah, a little bit, but like, so the time frame of superhero films had really been through, like, up to the year 2000, it had been completely DC oriented.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
mm-hmm.
a Marvel movie before 2000
there's
was
like-
kind of like the 70s, was like when the
Well, and
Spider-Man
then we were
TV
talking
show
about
was
how there's all these
popular.
DC animated shows,
Right.
And how, like, you know, every kid, if you were into a superheroes, it was DC, because
Yeah.
unless you read like comics, there was only DC on TV.
Yep.
Like the Batman animated series, and then what we said, Teen Titans
Teen
and
Titans, Justice League.
Justice League
those
is
were all
right.
big.
Yeah. I remember being more into DC then. I remember even having like a DC like book that had all the characters and stuff in it.
We used to rent the Hulk, Spider-Man, and X-Men books.
Encyclopedia.
Yeah, the
Yeah, it was like an
encyclopedias from
encyclopedia. I think it was a Justice League encyclopedia, actually.
From the library,
Yeah,
yeah.
we used to get them from the library like every single time we went. We would just go renew it, and if someone had it on hold, we'd slide it into the slot, go grab a new one, and keep that until someone wanted it.
Yeah, that's the weird thing about Spider-Man is back then, it wasn't like I was super into Spider-Man, but he was definitely my favorite in the time period before Ben 10, which wasn't that long.
Oh, Ben 10's DC?
No.
I'm just kidding.
Well, it is now, technically.
Is it really?
DC
Well, the comic
Comics.
book rights.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
Huh.
DC.
No, I didn't know that.
has that.
I wasn't a Ben 10 kid, but I guess you guys were.
Yeah, I was
Big
big into
time.
Ben 10. Yeah, Spider-Man, I definitely remember renting Spider-Man comics from that same library. And I remember being uncomfortable reading Spider-Man 2029 when there's blood in it. And I felt that was so disgraceful for there to be blood in a Spider-Man related thing. I could not believe it. There's not much blood in these Raimi movies.
No, they're pretty.
No, but there are some intense parts for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think
There's some blood, but again, not a whole lot.
that was kind of like my
I
version
really
of...
don't remember. Other than, like, dried on Tobey Mcguire's face. Like, you'd think that there would be more, like, sections, and I'll talk about one later, where it was like, I was expecting a lot of blood, and there was none.
In the
But
first
I'll
movie,
explain
that
it.
goblin battle at the end is the only time I can think when Tobey Maguire has some blood on his face.
But then even like Homecoming doesn't have a lot of blood, does it?
No,
can't really-
it doesn't.
I don't know if it has any really.
It doesn't at all.
Yeah. See, I mean, that's kind of just the way it is.
Yeah, but like, it's because that's like, that was my ideal Spider-Man at the time, was like this Tobey Maguire, very clean version of Spider-Man.
Oh, sure, and then you compare it to the...
And then you compare it to 2029 when you're reading
Okay.
it, and he's like slitting people's faces open with his gauntlet, and I'm like, whoa.
Whoa!
Yeah, I remember being very comfortable by that as a kid. Because this was, and I wasn't big into these movies as a kid. I was big into the first one and maybe the second one. But for whatever reason, this was my Spider-Man, despite me not being very big into him.
I don't know, for some reason you say Spider-Man was like your hero. I've never associated you with Spider-Man until recently.
Yeah, recently for sure I've gotten really big into
always,
Spider-Man.
to me, been Daredevil Hulk. Like, we used to play games and Derek was always Daredevil Hulk.
Daredevil came a bit later when I was in third grade or so. So Daredevil came a bit later.
Yeah, but so here's kind of the way superhero went, and the reason Spider-Man was so important was because up to the 90s it had been like DC only.
Mm-hmm.
They were really the only ones putting things out. And in the late 90s when Batman and Robin came out, it was kind of the end of DC film, and they transitioned into the animated stuff for TV.
Yeah.
Which I never got into either.
Not very much for me.
Not
either.
until like 2014 when we started watching the animated series Batman on whatever that channel is.
I mean, I can remember being a kid and watching the Batman animated series, Superman animated series, Justice League. I never got into Teen Titans, but like that, I was definitely into those. But as far as films went, you no longer had DC options until... I mean, there were some coming out, but not big names. You had like Constantine, V for Vendetta, Watchmen. Those are all DC movies that you don't necessarily associate as DC movies because they're not your big names. But so like there was kind of that lapse in period for DC, and that's when Marvel started to take over film. In 2000, X-Men came out, and I mean, good God, I was like 2. I don't remember the X-Men hype, but I can remember Spider-Man in 2002, and that movie, I promise you, was so much bigger than the first X-Men movie. I was looking at their like budget facts and stuff, and the opening weekend, X-Men made something like $50 million, whereas Spider-Man made $150 million, something like that. So it was like, clearly Spider-Man was like a big spectacle, whereas to me X-Men has always felt a little smaller scale, at least the first 3 movies.
And then the recent ones that no one cares about anymore.
Yeah. But the Spider-Man movies, I really think, propelled the superhero franchise into a household kind of film, you know?
That's what's so important about Sam Raimi.
Right.
Huh?
That's what's so important about Sam Raimi.
Exactly.
That's why we're thankful for him.
We're thankful for him.
Where would Marvel be now?
Exactly.
We wouldn't have Deadpool. We wouldn't have Homecoming.
Nope.
And you can see it when you watch these movies. Like, you can see how limited they were in ability to do that. It's not like they were limited in that they couldn't. Because they could have had Spider-Man with his eyes that are comic accurate, where they move. They could have done that using technology from the time period. It wouldn't have looked good, but they could have done it. But you can watch these movies and you can see that they had to stick to something so realistic in order to get people on board with the idea of superheroes, that you have this very realistic suit. Everything that happens in the movies is grounded in reality, and it's only recently that we've been moving into this modern superhero generation where we can be more comic accurate. But without movies like Spider-Man that got people warmed up to the idea, we would have never had that opportunity.
Well, let's just get into it, shall we?
Let's just start off with the first one.
Spider-Man
Some good talk.
2002. What's this movie about? You sure you want to know? The story of Spider-Man 2002 is not for the faint of heart. If someone said it was a little happy tale, if someone told you it was just an average, ordinary guy with not a care in the world, somebody lied. But let me assure you, this, like any story worth telling, is all about a superhero. You know the superhero. Spider-Man.
Is that your back-of-the-box description? It's like we're not talking about anything and any plot points. That's all we're going to talk about.
No, that was just a little meme I was doing.
I'm glad. I appreciate. Hey, what was that meme from the Saw podcast that
No, it's too late. I mean, I didn't go real in depth with the back of the box description. I just felt like organically we'll come up with enough to say about it.
Or we'll come up with enough to say about the DC superhero cartoons.
Well, on a field trip, young old Penis Parker is bitten by a mutated spider and given incredible abilities. He can now do whatever a spider can. Unfortunately for him, Norman Osborn, who's a bit of a scientist himself, has accidentally turned himself into the unstable Green Goblin. The Green Goblin is bent on revenge, and only Spider-Man can stop him. Or maybe in a twist of fate, he'll stop himself.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, and that's what I got. It's a real.
That's pretty much the plot.
It's the plot of the movie. Yeah. There's a lot of things happen in it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. I mean,
is there another superhero movie that you can think of, other than Spider-Man 3 maybe, that has given us so many great memes? Because I don't think there are any superhero movies that are rivaled in their ability to produce good memes as these Raimi Spider-Man movies.
I mean, here's what I'll say is that for some reason, the internet community has not latched on hard enough to Batman and Robin memes, but that movie is packed full of meme potential. But yes, these
are you listening,
movies,
internet?
Yeah, internet, come on. I want so many Batman and Robin memes, I no longer care to look at them. Yeah, I mean, these movies are memeable as hell, and they are goofy.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of what I was getting at earlier was that this was Alex and my generation of superhero film, and I think that as much as I can view it as a meme now, I still have like so much inner respect for these movies and so much like legit love that
I think the word you're looking for is nostalgia.
It is, but it isn't. And I'll explain it at the end why I think that it goes beyond nostalgia as to why I like these movies. But
see, that's the difference between us. Is although I know for a fact that there was a period when I loved Spider-Man, because I remember renting Spider-Man comics and renting the encyclopedia and being super into Spider-Man, I can't actually remember watching these movies. I only remember watching them later, like on DVD, like in 2010, like semi-recently, is the only memories I have, and I associate these with some children that Kyle and I knew, that drive me insane, which prevented me from ever going back to these movies because I wanted to associate myself with anything but those kids. So I moved on from these movies as much as possible. So although I know for a fact that I grew up with them and I loved these movies, I will not be looking at these movies through the lenses of nostalgia, because I don't have any nostalgic feelings for them.
The funny thing is, I bet you anything that when at some point we talk about the Amazing Spider-Man movies, that's where Derek's nostalgia lenses will kick on. Specifically the first one. He got really into that movie.
Because I don't like those Andrew Garfield Spider-Man.
Yeah, so we'll get there. We'll get to a point where Derek's nostalgic about it and unwilling to look at it through a human lens.
I bet you I'll be able to for the second Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean, did anyone like that movie? But we're not talking.
I liked it.
No, we're talking about the Raimi verse right now. That's enough. That's enough Amazing Spider-Man talk for this podcast.
The Raimi cinematic universe.
Oh, hold on, because we have to re-record this. It's time to get our obligatory reference in. What do you think of the movie, Dalton? What do you think of Spider-Man?
Oh yeah, he's not here.
Yeah, Dalton's not here. So he was supposed to be yet again. All right,
failing us.
Now we can continue. I just needed to get that in there.
So, I mean, this is a little different than our horror movies where we can talk about our favorite kills and whatnot. But is there...
Well, I got a favorite kill.
Oh, you have a favorite kill? Okay.
Godspeed, Alex.
Is there a part in particular that really stood out to you in this movie for any reason? Be it you loved it, you hated it?
In the
Yes.
first one.
Yeah,
I'm
in
trying
the
to think of
first
the...
movie.
Trying to think of specific first one.
I have a moment that I hate. I'm trying to think of one that I love. There's a lot to like about this first movie. But
Oh yeah, I know.
one moment that
Okay.
stands out in particular is one that I was like, this is ridiculously goofy, is that parade sequence.
Yes, this is my favorite. Yep.
It's your favorite?
Yeah.
No, this scene is so goofy.
That's so goofy. It's such a comic book scene.
Yes.
No,
thank
it's
you.
not.
It's such
No.
a comic book scene.
Maybe comics of the time, but definitely not anymore. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know.
but sure it ages. Yeah.
This scene is so stupid. The Green Goblin comes flying in, blows up that vaporizes everyone except Mary Jane has superpowers that they'd never address because she doesn't get vaporized. She's on that platform. It's about to fall.
Well, I don't think he ever pumpkin bombs her. He just blows
he
up the
throws it
ledge
up on
No.
the same exact thing she's on.
below her. He
No.
threw it. Yes, he threw it below her. It split the two support beams. They both fell, and that's why it breaks underneath her.
Also,
he didn't throw it at her.
Does Harry forget this happens in the sequels because he's like, my dad loved me? And then there's this scene when the Green Goblin literally tries to murder him.
Yes, that's a big issue that I have with the rest of these movies, but
Harry and his dad don't like each other in this first one.
like there's a scene where
Do
it
they have a
turns
lot of
around.
interaction in this?
They don't
first
have a
one?
lot, but there is one point where Norman's well into Green Goblin territory, and Harry comes home upset that MJ just broke up with him, and he comes to his dad and he's like, "You were right," and he's like, "Son, I know I haven't been a great father to you, but I've always loved you." And it was like, at that point, that one bit alone was the last interaction I think they ever had with each other, and so from Harry's perspective, he's clouded himself into that one moment is what he'll always remember from his dad, is his dad saying, "I love you, son."
Yeah. Okay.
But
Makes
I
sense.
do have issues with it when later in the series he finds out that his dad was the Green Goblin, and he's like, "My dad was a great man."
Yeah.
It's like, dude, what are
Like,
you
remember
talking
that
Hasn't
time
he
he tried to
about?
kind of
kill
hasn't
you?
he kind of gone crazy at that point though?
Harry?
Not
Yeah.
well. He's obsessed with
I mean,
Spider-Man, but I wouldn't
yeah.
say he's crazy. There's
I don't know. He gets kind of weird in the second one, doesn't he, Harry?
a little. Here's what I'll say about these Raimi movies. Most of the supporting cast is awesome. Like, I really like James Franco as Harry Osborn. I love Willem Dafoe. Jeez, I was like, I love Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn. I think that J. Jonah Jameson, played by
J.K. Simmons.
J.K. Simmons, is great.
Fantastic. Absolutely.
He's the best part of these movies.
That's what I was gonna say. This is the best Jameson we've
Oh
ever
my
seen.
god.
He is
He's like the
fantastic.
only one too.
Yeah,
And
was there even one in the Amazing Spider-Man?
No, because
Oh,
they
no,
they
yeah, I
didn't
don't think
want to.
so, but-
They didn't want to have to compete with this.
Yeah.
Because you
God
can't.
bless him. Jameson's so goddamn good.
And this gives birth to the game in 2018, years later, where the game copies this exact Jameson, and it's awesome.
yeah.
And this is part of it that makes it so much like a comic book. Because you just look at him and he's like straight out of a comic book. He's got like a cigar sitting out of his mouth, and he's got like the hair and everything. It's just such a comic book.
I really
that
do.
character.
I really do think that in the comics and maybe even later animated TV series, they started drawing Jameson to look like
Mm-hmm.
J.K. Simmons
Yeah.
because people so universally loved him, and with good reason. He is
They do
my
that with
absolute favorite in these movies.
Yeah, they do that with a lot of heroes. Like Iron Man has started to look more like Robert Downey Jr. in recent years. That happens a lot, but like definitely with Jameson,
Yeah.
it became
Yeah.
J.K. Simmons.
Parker.
He's great. But my biggest problem with these movies is like your main characters. Tobey Mcguire.
Tony.
Tony
Tony Mcguire.
Tobey Mcguire. I don't like him. I don't like him as Spider-Man. I think he's annoying. I don't think he's that good of an actor. Kristen Dunst as Mary Jane annoys the hell out of me. I can't stand her. Ugh. But the supporting cast, awesome. Love them all.
I like Tobey Maguire because I like when they have a good Peter Parker.
Mm-hmm.
I like when you can kind of relate to the Peter Parker.
Yes.
Because then it makes the Spider-Man, I don't know, I don't want to say it makes Spider-Man a little bit more relatable, but it makes it seem like he's more of a like
your everyday guy.
Yeah, your everyday guy turned superhero.
Right.
So
I guess
there's issues with Tobey Mcguire. I don't think he's perfect by any means, which you see later in the series more. But with this first one, I like how he's a good Peter Parker, and he's an okay Spider-Man, but...
Yeah, I suppose with the first movie alone, Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker, I don't have that much of a problem with it. It's more with the second and third one when I don't think he's that good of an actor, and I think he's way too whiny. This first one I can see. He's pretty relatable, but I don't know.
I don't know. I personally did not have an issue with really any of the acting in these movies. I thought there was nothing glaringly bad where I was like, oh man, because there's some movies that I watch and I look at the actors. My best example is I just watched the Lost Boys trilogy, and in the second movie, it's the only movie that I can think of right now where I've watched the acting and I've gone, Jesus Christ, that is like high school play levels of bad. Like,
and Tobey Maguire's not that for me. It's not like that blatant, but there's so many little moments with him that I'm like, this is too awkward to have been intentionally awkward because it compromises the characterization as a whole. Just like little moments or like little dumb things he'll do or say, or the way he'll say them, when I pin it on Tobey Maguire. And I've never seen another Tobey Maguire movie. Maybe he's not a bad actor and I'm just judging him too hard, but
see, that's why I don't think it's him being a bad actor. I think of it as like a movie that like came straight out of a comic book. And I feel like, I don't know, that's just how I've always kind of seen it. I've always kind of enjoyed it. It's like, it just feels like a goofy comic book.
I mean, there was a point in time where I definitely was like, no, yeah, Tobey Maguire was definitely way too whiny and all of it. But I do think that the story plays to that, and it gives... Tobey Maguire is a really sympathetic character, I think, watching these movies. I think his Peter Parker, I feel for him a lot more than I feel for Garfield, because he doesn't look like Peter Parker to me. He's too much of a cool guy, too douchey. That's the issue I take with him, really. I think he's a fine actor, and Tom Holland, I think that they just haven't explored that character enough for me at this point. And so I do think that Tobey Maguire is my favorite Spider-Man. I feel like I do relate to him the most, and I feel like his character is real sympathetic, and it has a lot to do with the story arc, that if you really follow it and you really put yourself in Tobey Maguire's shoes and you
would pick someone that's not Mary Jane.
Wow.
I mean, maybe. That's the bit that we haven't seen, is the 16 years leading up to this where they've been neighbors and in love with each other their whole life, and they get to this complicated point in their relationship. But I don't know.
Yeah.
And again, I don't really take issue with any of the actors in these movies, but Kirsten Dunst is probably the more dry actress in the movies. She's the least stand out to me, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't hate her.
They don't really show a whole lot of her, like, aside from when Peter interacts with her, so you don't really get to see a whole lot of her. So you don't get to understand her character as much.
I can't stand her.
Which is fair.
I think they had too much of her in these movies. She's too wish-washy and mean, and she's too not understanding. I hate her so much. I hate this Mary Jane. And not like there's another Mary Jane, but I hate Mary Jane in this movie. In all these movies, in all three of them.
I think that her character makes sense. I think that, like I said, she's probably the more dull actress, and I don't feel for her as much as in the first movie, but when you get to the second movie, there's a lot of, like, complications with her wanting to be with Peter, but also Peter being in a place where he can't be with her.
So she uses that poor guy, that poor astronaut?
Yeah, I mean,
can't stand her.
But they're both in the wrong place at the wrong time each time they're in that. And then at the end of the movie, she hits that understanding. And then in the next movie, sure, there's a couple points where she's maybe being a little melodramatic about certain situations that are happening, like Spider-Man kissing Gwen Stacy and she being like, was that Peter or was that Spider-Man? It's like, yeah, she's...
No, she's annoying that whole third movie because she's like, what the hell, Peter? It's supposed to be my special moment. I'm supposed to have the spotlight. And he's just trying to, like, help her. He's just trying to be like, he's trying to cheer her up and be like, hey, listen, it gets better. She's like, what the hell, Peter? I can't stand her.
Well, again, there's a whole bit about the miscommunication going on there that led to that. Like, she had been fired from the play, and he was like, oh, you'll get used to all of that kind of criticism and stuff, and they were both on the wrong end. But
I feel like maybe it relies too much on the viewer to, kind of understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. I invested myself into it. I understand where it was all coming from, so it never felt like jarring to me, and it never forced me to go, good God, she's annoying. But
and that's another reason why I feel like it's like so much more like a comic book, is because you don't see a whole lot of her, and then I don't know, just kind of like because it follows Peter all the time.
Yeah, and here's what I definitely will say about these Raimi movies is they do feel like comic books to me, which I love. I think that in superhero movies, a lot of the times you bend yourself one direction or the other, where it's either you're really campy and goofy like the 60s Batman, and it's at a point where it's almost unbearably like cartoony, that you'd almost like just make it a cartoon for kids or something rather than this like TV show. Or you bend it in the other direction and you hit things like the early X-Men movies or even The Dark Knight to an extent, where it's so real that you almost lose the comic feeling of it, and it no longer feels like a superhero movie. It feels like there's points where it's like, Jesus, this is like Batman fighting a terrorist that's like
like
really dark. But and I like each end of that to a degree, but I also really enjoy when the movies come to this middle section where I feel grounded in reality, but the universe to me is still so fun that it's like, yes, the characters feel real to me, but the world is enough for me to unplug my mind and go, I'm somewhere else right now. They're not dealing with 9/11 terrorists, and they're also not fighting.
I don't know if they ever said 9/11.
No, I know. Right. I'm just saying, they're not fighting something so real that I can picture it, but they're also not fighting something so fake that I'm like, oh, the polka dot plunderer, back at it again. Like, it's a healthy middle of it where it's fun but real enough for me to really invest. And I think that the Sam Raimi movies, more than almost any other superhero franchise, has that perfect balance. I think that...
I don't think it's a perfect balance at all.
No? You think it's too...
Here's the thing, is like Spider-Man himself and the Green Goblin himself... It's actually like the comic booky elements of this are grounded in realism when everything else is a cartoon. And the situations they get themselves into, the fights, everything that happens to them is a cartoon, but the suit's real. It feels more real than most. The Green Goblin feels a little bit more real than most. I feel like these lean themselves too much towards campiness. I wouldn't even say it's comic bookness or cartooniness. I'd say it's like camp, like not good. Not that I hate it. Again, I think these movies are fine, but I think they're too goofy to be taken seriously and enjoyed as a middle ground. I enjoy them for what they are. I don't enjoy them as a middle ground between comic book and reality. That's where I view a movie like Homecoming. Spider-Man Homecoming fits comic book to reality perfect for me.
Yeah, and I think that is one that does it better in the MCU.
I think with the Homecoming, they do... So for me, with Homecoming, they do a really good job with having a good Peter Parker and a good Spider-Man, where he's good as both. Right. So you feel like he can just kind of fit in any situation. So I think he could fit as a good comic book character. And I don't know, I mean, he's a really good actor, so I think if you wanted him to be a comic book Spider-Man, he could be, but if you wanted him to be a little bit more real, he also could be. So I just think Tom Holland's an all-around good actor and Spider-Man, that he could be both.
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe he could. But and again, we've only seen one movie with him, but he could do a better job than, all the Sam Raimi comic book stuff we've been talking about.
And the thing that the one scenario in this movie that keeps coming in my head is like the perfect example of this is too goofy to be a middle ground is that parade sequence when they're bouncing on parade floats.
See, that's why
like,
I feel like it feels like a comic
zipping
book.
It's
because they're bouncing around on the.
Yeah, but it just, for me, it feels too cartoony to fit into a perfect middle ground between comic book and reality. It feels too goofy to me. So it leans itself more towards cartoony comic book campy goofiness.
That's what I'm okay with is that it's so comic booky.
Right, and I'm not saying that's a problem.
Well, yeah, but I know what you're saying is that it's not like a perfect middle ground. Right. But to me, it's not even a middle ground. It's just so much like a comic book that it's like goofy and I enjoy it.
Here's I guess what I'm trying to say.
There you go. Boom, Kyle. We just destroyed your argument.
here's what I'm trying to say is that the comic book elements to me are the action and the world that is built, with minor characters like Jameson he is a comic book character to me.
Yes.
On the other hand, I think that a lot of the story you have is more real. A lot of the character story, obviously not, Spider-Man getting bit by, or Peter Parker getting bit by a bug, but I think that like the drama that he has between him and Mary Jane and the struggles he goes through with his academic life and trying to balance it, that feels real to me.
Yeah.
And I think that the characters themselves, when they are not Spider-Man, Peter Parker feels like he could be a real human being that I could come in contact with. He does not feel so unbelievably goofy until he has the black venom in him in the third movie. Mm. That's the only point where Peter Parker no longer feels like a real person to me, but I think that he is Peter Parker, Aunt May, Uncle Ben.
Uncle Ben feels like a very real person. Peter treats him like dirt.
Yeah, and Mary Jane to an extent, Harry Osborn, they all feel like real people to me. Like I could meet them in real life and they would be the way that they are in the movie. They don't feel completely oddly motivated or anything like that. That's what I'm getting
until they change, until Peter Parker becomes Spider-Man, then he has different motives.
Yeah.
When he's Spider-Man, and then Green Goblin then starts, and that's when you start getting the comic book stuff.
Right, and so that's their alter egos are comic book, whereas their human versions of themselves are real, and that's the blend that I like.
Yes.
I think that some movies you have characters where it's like, I don't think that I would ever meet a Logan from Wolverine. I think that that's a purely comic book character, and I don't think I'd ever meet a Clark Kent. That's a purely comic book character, but Peter Parker, I could meet.
See, again, I disagree.
How?
Because currently, being a high school student, I would never meet someone like this. A Peter Parker like this does not exist in the modern day. And sure, maybe for the time they did, but I doubt it. Because kids back then were volatile.
What do you mean you doubt it? And also,
kids back then are slinging racial slurs and like other things like it's nothing. The movie
2002.
The movie no, trust me. The movie mid-90s just came out and it's getting like a load of backlash because it has an accurate portrayal of teenagers from the time period where they're flinging slurs, F words that have sexual connotation, like they're way more so than kids do nowadays. I don't see a loser like Peter Parker existing in the real world. He's a comic book version of a loser. Real life Peter Parker in real life would be someone like Peter Parker from Homecoming.
Okay, here's the thing. I think you're too fixated on the first 20 minutes of this movie where they were in high school. No, but they're not in high school.
Even outside of high school, he a loser like Peter Parker.
But he's not really a loser.
I've got a problem with you saying that the Tom Holland Peter Parker feels more like someone you can meet because he is supposed to be like this super genius in high school.
Well, I understand
that he can keep up with Tony Stark. They're like, are you kidding me? He can't be a super genius like that.
But it's the interactions he has feel more like a real life interaction.
But I feel like he's got more interactions between high schoolers in Homecoming because it still is.
I know. I'm not even just saying in terms of high school. I'm just saying for a person this age, the newer Spider-Mans feel more like a person that would act like they would for the age. Even Tobey
Mcguire doesn't have as much like interactions because he had graduated.
And again, I'm not just saying high school interactions. I'm saying in general for a kid that age.
In general, yeah, because he doesn't have a whole lot of interactions besides between Mary Jane and like Aunt May and a few other characters. You don't really see a whole lot of other interactions that he has.
Yeah,
Tom Holland, you see a ton of interactions.
Well, and I would even say that Andrew Garfield, he's a bit of a dick, sure, but every single kid in high school nowadays, every single kid around that age is the same.
But I don't remember those enough to talk about it, so that's it. You'll argue with yourself, basically. I can't say anything about Garfield, but I'm talking the small interactions, too, between him and his boss and pleading for his job, and him and his teacher, and trying to keep up in school, and even him to the doctor talking about how he's split in the second movie, talking about how he's split.
Yeah, I was going to say, all these interactions are from Spider-Man 2.
He doesn't know what to do. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, is that he feels more real to me. Like, he has those interactions where he pleads to keep his job.
Yeah, but he hardly pleads to keep his job. He's like, oh, come on, guy.
No, he tries desperately, and you feel for him, especially when it's at the end, and he's like, Peter, you're a nice kid, but you're unreliable, and he rips the thing off, and it's like, yeah, I feel that. I can put myself in his shoes and understand the desperate need to try and keep the job, and not be able, and, feeling like your side's not being heard, stuff like that. I just think that there's a good mixture between comic and reality to where the movie feels fun, but I can also put myself in the shoes.
But we didn't talk about the great Spider-Man one-liner of the movie. What's your favorite one-liner from Spider-Man the movie?
It's, oh, hey, sorry I'm late, it's a jungle out there. I had to beat an old lady with the stick to get these cranberries.
That's a good one. That was a good pick. That wasn't the one that I was thinking of. My favorites, because it's the biggest example of why this Spider-Man is such a loser compared to the other two, is when he goes, "That's enough, Gobby." That's so stupid.
No, my favorite is
Parker. Yeah,
just anything Jameson says.
That's enough, Gobby. That's too good.
The last two things I want to say, what works, what doesn't for me, is the score is fantastic.
Oh yeah, good score.
It is like, I really think that it is unmatched in the superhero movies. I think I would not agree.
Yeah,
with that. I know you wouldn't agree, but I really think that the Spider-Man theme and the villain themes in these movies are so like iconic, and they're so great. Danny Elfman does such a good job every time.
I would even say like movies like The Dark Knight have, for me, more memorable. Because if you would ask me...
a more memorable soundtrack in general, or a more memorable 3-note song? Because that's what The Dark Knight has, is it really does. It has like one big song that you can think of, but then Spider-Man, it's such an upbeat, like, fun soundtrack to listen to.
If you would ask me a month ago, hey, sing the original Spider-Man theme, like the Raimi ones, I would have had no idea what they are.
I don't know. I think it's the age difference between you. Is I grew up on this, and this is really what I can... Like, you can sing me the original X-Men song. I can't. Yeah, until you do it every time, I never know what it is. So I guess it's... There's a lot of personal preference to it, but I do think that if you were to ask a broad audience of people,
the Avengers
who
would be
were
what they
big,
said. No, that wouldn't be. They would say something like Superman the original, dun, 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 or they'd say like Batman the 60s, or they'd say Spider-Man 60s. Those would be your answers.
Yes, but I think that this is up there. I think it's great.
And I would say even in these movies, the score, I got kind of bored of it by the third one. I got bored because it's the same songs in all of them.
And that is an issue that I faced. I thought I could hear a new... So the way it went was in Spider-Man, it was like all new, and it really stands out to me. Spider-Man 2, I hear it, And I can hear the new Doc Ock theme is the big one that stands out to me in that movie. And then when you hit Spider-Man 3, it does fall into the background a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it's the same thing again, and I can't picture, and it's probably because there's like 3 villains in that last movie. I can't picture a specific theme to each one.
Someone has the theme song, but it might be Doc Ock, where it's like, dum, bum, bum, bum. Yeah, that's Doc Ock, huh? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't remember a single villain theme from Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man 3, it felt like such a breath of fresh air when you get that parade scene in Spider-Man 3 when he's getting the keys to the city and they're playing the 60s Spider-Man theme song. It's that like orchestra playing it. And it's like, hey, a song that I can actually like hum to and remember. But all the other ones is like generic by that point and it's not memorable.
I mean, it was in all other movies.
It wasn't in the first one.
It was someone's ringtone in the first one, and then it was a Chinese lady singing it in the second one.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's
Spider-Man.
That's actually probably the first place I heard that song. And like the most memorable association I have with the 60s song would be that Asian chick on the street. But I don't know.
I will also say that because I grew up on this and the Spider-Man soundtrack will play over my highlight reel when I die, that even the Nickelback song on the Spider-Man soundtrack I am a fan of.
Oh, wait, which one's that?
It's called Hero. It's not labeled as a Nickelback song.
No, I know that.
Chad Kroeger featuring one other guy, but it's Nickelback. And
and the music video's horrible.
Featuring Josie Scott? Yeah, I remember this.
Yeah.
It's too bad he beats women and advocates for the rape of women.
Yeah, I don't condone anything he says or does. Chad Kroeger is a real piece of shit, but I do enjoy that soundtrack, and it's definitely stand out. It's right up there with Kids Bop 9 to me as a real sentimental album. I will those two always linked up in this boy's brain.
Kids Bop 9, what does that even have on it?
Kids Bop Crazy Frog.
If I was going to go with the sentimental soundtrack, it's not even from a show I like, but like a lot of the Glee music, because of how overplayed like how much you used to listen to it, and how young I was when you would be listening to it, like that's what I associate, and I hate it because I don't like that show.
Okay, but last thing I have to say about Spider-Man 2002 is that
special effects are bad.
I did have that actually, yeah. They're not bad. They're noticeably 2000 special effects. But
which are bad. 2000 special effects. CGI, I don't know why they felt the need to rely on it so much. Jurassic Park did a good job by not relying on it too much. And then every movie that came out after Jurassic Park was bad because of it.
I mean, I don't think that... At the time, here's what I can remember as being a kid, is at the time I watched it, and I did not notice that there was any special effects in there. So it works on its target audience. Like,
yeah, to be fair.
The scenes of the 100% CGI Spider-Man swinging around in his wrestler suit. Like, now when I watched it this time, I was like, that could be a fucking video game for all I care. Like, that looks bad.
And it looks worse than the new video game, too.
Wait, do you guys remember that? What he said to the wrestler?
Bonesaw McGraw? Yes.
When he's like, nice outfit. Did your husband make that for you?
Yeah. Too good.
That joke hasn't aged well, but
I'd say that joke is funnier because it hasn't aged well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think it was as funny watching this movie again if it didn't have so many people upset nowadays.
Oh man.
Yeah, but what I was gonna say is that Aunt May does nothing for me in these movies.
True.
I've never enjoyed her in these. I think that
she's old and annoying.
Marissa Tomei in the new one, I think that she's a great Aunt May. And
well, she's hardly in it, but
yeah, I mean, but still, I don't. Who needs a lot of Aunt May?
Yeah,
I don't need
true.
Aunt May-centric movies.
You know what? You know what's crazy about that is that Sony was gonna make an Aunt May spin-off movie, solo movie, following Amazing Spider-Man 2.
God bless Sony and their terrible, terrible ideas. Like,
are you telling me Slender Man was a bad idea?
I think that what's more funny about Sony right now is that because they don't have the rights to Spider-Man, but like every other Spider-Man character, they're like, let's go with that and let's make an entire extended universe about Spider-Man characters without Spider-Man.
And what's
so they
even
have
funnier,
straight up announced like 9 movies based around Spider-Man villains without Spider-Man.
What's even
Like,
better
who wants to
is
see
that
a Black Cat and a Sandman and Mysterio and all of these characters, but we don't have Spider-Man right now. Marvel's got it.
Yeah.
It's like, don't
yeah, well, there's two things with that. My favorite part of it is the fact that they keep trying to be like, and it's part of the MCU, and then Kevin Feige will have to be like, no, it's not. Don't listen to them. It's not part of the
They just
MCU.
need to hold all these characters ransom. So they're like, you want to use this character, you gotta buy him.
Well, that's what they do.
Yeah.
But what they really need to do is they're like, oh, you want Black Cat in the MCU? Then Venom's part of the cinematic universe.
Yeah,
Do a little
they need to do that.
That's what happens. Is our Venom movie is now canon with your guys' movie, and they have to be like, oh no.
The other great
we'll
part
pay
of
you
it
a
is
lot of money.
Sony is dumb because they have the rights to Miles Morales. Why don't they just make him the center of their Spider-Verse?
I don't know. He's just not well enough known. I bet
They
you
still
that,
have other versions of Spider-Man too, though. They can do whatever they want with, like, Spider-Man Noir or any other version of
But
Spider-Man.
do they have the name Peter Parker still?
They still have it.
Huh.
They still have Peter Parker Spider-Man. They just are not supposed to use the classic Spider-Man. So why not just be like, Ultimate Spider-Man, boom, go.
Yeah.
I don't know why you wouldn't. I just don't. Sony's dumb. All of them.
God, I hope Sony's not listening. They're gonna ruin another.
They're gonna ruin this podcast.
They listen. They're like, "Holy crap! We need to get these guys on the phone. We need to make a Miles Morales Spider-Man movie stat or a Spider-Man Noir movie."
They're like, look up Spider-Man villains, but only Miles Morales Spider-Man villains. They're like, we got a list of them. Boom. We're gonna make a whole spin-off universe about them. Don't put Miles Morales in it though. We're trying something new.
Did you know that Kevin Feige was actually
Associated with these ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the X-Men movies from
Yeah.
back then too.
that dude is Marvel till he dies.
He
is.
He even wrote notes to Sony during the Amazing Spider-Man movies, being like, "Here's the things you can fix for the next one." His notes went unchecked between 1 and 2.
Yeah, seems like it.
Yep.
Okay, now that we're almost an hour in talking about the first of the 3 movies,
It's time to get to the good one.
No, what was?
Oh.
Well, we talked a little bit about. Oh, okay, all right. I was just gonna say we talked a little. I think we talked enough about one.
Yeah, and I think we definitely talked about each movie, so I'm sure the next 2
I think we could blast through the rest
Yeah,
of these
it's going to be a little less for each of them, but
because we kind of talked of them as a whole,
Yeah.
which is fine. But
Because that's kind of how they are.
yeah, this
Even
really is
society-
like, you could watch this as one movie. If you had a strong enough bladder, you could sit down and watch the whole thing in one sitting.
Society
then you're
views-
guaranteed to pick.
Yeah. Society kind of views these all as a whole too.
Yeah.
So.
And they're really well connected, I think.
I
So
think so,
I'm
yeah.
happy with
Agree.
it.
And I like you have almost every single character in the first one, major or minor, will return. Flash Thompson is credited for Spider-Man 3, but I didn't see him. in
He
there.
he was in the funeral sequence at the very end for Harry.
Okay.
Yeah, he walks off in the background, and that was it.
Gotcha.
Here's the one issue I did find with the Easter eggs in this movie is Jameson's like, where's those pictures of the Spider Kid? We got Brock on it right now, Eddie Brock.
And
Like he doesn't say
yeah,
Eddie
he
Brock,
says
but he
it in
says
the
we got
first
we got Brock on it.
Yeah,
And
in
then
the first
in the
one.
third movie, Eddie Brock's like, hey, I'm Eddie Brock, I'm the new guy. And I was like, oh well, continuity's now broken because in the first movie Jameson's been talking about him. And it would have been fine if Jameson had been like, where's the new kid, Eddie Brock? Because Jameson doesn't know the people that work for him. But it was Brock that said it. He was like, I'm the new guy. And it was like, okay, well, oops.
Yeah.
Not a big deal, but
But you know, you got like the desk girl
yeah.
in Jameson's office, the same. You got like that goofy guy who's always pitching ideas to Jameson is in all 3. And a whole bunch of your other minor characters return. Norman Osborn's in all 3 of them, despite being dead in the first. So, I like that about these movies, is that they carry continuity really well.
Yeah. So, for this first movie, I definitely pissed. There was a hefty amount of urine coming from me. Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'd say
trickling down into my shoe. And I changed my shoes.
a piddle for the first one.
Just a piddle.
Yeah.
All right.
Second one's where it gets good.
Spider-Man 2. So, did Spider-Man 2 open with Peter Parker talking?
Yeah, I think they all did, didn't they?
Damn, I didn't look it up, so I don't have a good parody.
I'm pretty
for
sure
that
they
one.
all do.
Spider-Man 2 opens with narration, but it does not close with narration. Only the first closes with narration.
Well, I didn't catch that.
Who am I?
Spider-Man 2.
I'm Spider-Man.
Here we go. It's pizza time in New York
Hell
once
yes.
again. But this time Peter is struggling with being able to balance life as Peter Parker and performing his duties as Spider-Man. This leads to him losing his powers for a portion of the film, which is a decision that I was okay with. The new villain in town is a pair of robotic arms attached to a man conveniently named Dr. Otto Octavius, or Doc Ock. He is trying to create an unlimited energy source, however it blows up in his face, causing his inhibitor chip to malfunction and ruin his higher brain function. With no more self-control, he goes on a rampage to recreate his failed machine. He forces Peter Parker back into the role as Spider-Man in Spider-Man 2. I don't have fun names. They're pretty adequately named with Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, and Spider-Man 3.
The third one.
That's, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the movie. That's what happens in it.
That is what happens in it.
I do like this fat neck beard of a villain.
Funny, he's clean shaven, but he looks less neckbeardy with an actual neckbeard.
Yeah.
Because the actor does. I mean, it's not a neck beard, but it's a full beard, and he looks a lot better with it.
I didn't think he looked dumb.
He looks goofy.
Otto Octavius? Yeah, and this is one of the
He's
things
got
about...
the little girdle on the whole movie.
Yeah.
Oh, he looks a little
Really?
goofy.
I didn't have a problem with that. There's one scene in the movie when I think he looks silly, and that's right after he breaks out of the hospital, when he's shirtless wearing the hospital pants, but it's not like he's wearing them, it's like they're just kind of lightly attached, and it looks like he's wearing a little skirt. That's the only scene when I was like, he looks stupid. But I didn't have a problem with him.
Well, I don't know if it was a problem. He's just a goofy fat neck beard.
I didn't think he was goofy either. I think he looks like a normal dude. This is like my Dr. Octopus. So when the game came out with the comic accurate look for Doc Ock,
I think I do prefer this Doc Ock than like
the game.
The game.
Yeah, but when the game came out with that like comic accurate look, I was like, this guy looks like an idiot. He looks like an egg of a human being.
Yeah.
But like with this one, I think him like he's like a normal looking guy. I didn't think he was goofy.
Yeah,
Dr. Eggman.
That's what he could be in the game. Got that bald head. Like mostly bald. I don't know.
Go ahead and argue with me about this one, but the best scene of this movie and most superhero movies is the train sequence.
Right.
It's so goddamn
Oh, yeah. I don't know if I'd argue with that.
I mean, like, it's probably my favorite standout scene in, like, all of superhero film. I think it's just so good. The whole ending where they raise him up above their heads and, like, crowd surf him on the train and they put him down and his arms, like, out in the T.
It's definitely one of the most iconic.
Yeah, and just the interactions he has with the people where he's like, oh, he's just a kid, and they all feel for him. It's so good. It's such a good, like, heartfelt moment. That
And you know why they do it?
People care about.
They have one of these moments in all three movies. In
where
the
New
first
York
one,
bands together.
in the first one, it's when they attack Green Goblin.
Mm-hmm.
In this one, it's this
This
scene.
moment on the train.
The third one, I don't remember what it was, but I remember noticing it.
I feel
was
like
oh, here's the moment.
It's the end battle where the whole crowd of New Yorkers are down on the ground watching it all happen, and I don't know. It wasn't as blatant as the other ones.
Right,
It was
and it gets more subtle
the
each
people
time.
of America,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
But it's definitely hey New York, we can make it through 9/11 together. That's what it is.
in
Here comes
2000,
9/11 again.
No, well, the issue this came out like right after 9/11 happened. So like this was fresh. Yeah. It was a movie all about New York and heroes in New York, and it was the line in the first movie is literally like you mess with one guy, you mess with all of New York or something like that, and it was like a blatant message of patriotism.
Mm-hmm. And all three of these movies have, even in the third one, he lands in front of, when he makes his grand return, he lands in front of the American flag. He's a red, white, and blue superhero.
Hell yeah, nationalism.
So, yeah, but this
and in that train sequence when they all stand in front of him and he's
like, you want to get to him, you got to go through me.
And me.
And I like when Doc Ock's just like, yep, and boops him out of the way.
It's kind of cool to see that because they're like, yeah, we're going to band up, but he's still just kind of, it's not like New York comes together and defeats Doc Ock.
Yeah, right, yeah.
It's nothing stupid like that.
Makes him pretty menacing for sure.
Yeah. So,
we didn't talk about his suit though, the Spider-Man suit.
Oh, I hate it, if I'm honest. It looks padded. It looks like he's wearing foam to make him look stronger. It reminds me of the new Shazam suit, which also looks goofy. I hate this suit. The eyes look ridiculous. Specifically in the third one, when he gets the one eye blown up, but you can still see it, you know? You can still see the corner of it come down where it's cut around the suit. My least favorite Spider-Man suit is in these movies.
Definitely my favorite Spider-Man suit.
Yeah, I disagree. I'm a fan of it.
You like it?
I'm a fan of it, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I like the like webbing on it. It looks like it's like 3D, like it's like textured.
Yes,
you know?
That's exactly what I like.
That's what I like
I
about
love
it.
the texture of it, and I actually really like his eyes on it. They're like shiny and big. I like it. I really am
That's
not
my
a fan.
least favorite part.
I'm not a fan of the MCU Spider-Man suit with the moving eyes. I think for Deadpool it works great. For Spider-Man, I don't need it. And I know that it's the way it happens in the comics, is this is what it's like. All the way through growing up for me, Spider-Man had the solid eyes that did not move when he talked and stuff.
Why is it necessary for them to move?
Just
either?
to
It's
you know?
here's the
express.
problem.
It's hard to express through their suits.
Yeah, it's the problem with this movie, with actually all the way through Amazing Spider-Man 2, is they're constantly looking for excuses to get Peter out of that mask. Like, every single fight, every single time he puts on the mask, the writers, it's like they all come together and go, now what can we do to get him out of this mask so you can tell what his emotions are? Because you need to see his eyes to be able to feel his emotion, because eyes are like the gateway to emotion. So in this first one, he's taking it off a lot, or at the very end it gets ripped open so you can see him. I actually like the look of when it's all ripped. The second
That's
one...
the one time I don't like
Really, you don't like it?
They do it in like every movie where it like splits down half of his face and then there's like a chunk of his mouth missing and stuff.
I thought it was good. I like it in this first one.
I like it because I like how it kind of shows what the like suit's like.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's
I don't know.
not
I just
durable.
I really like just like the way it looks. Like how you can like kind of see what the texture of it is, and more so than like the like kind of 3-dimensional like webbing all over him. But you can like see like the detail and like the stitching of the suit. It's not just like a solid like color or whatever.
I mean, here's the time that I think it works is at the end of the first movie they do it where they split it down his face and there's like one thread holding and you can see both of his eyes and stuff. I was fine with it there. It was kind of the first time it had happened, and so it's not like overbearing. Spider-Man 2...
It doesn't happen in that one.
Well...
Because he takes the mask off
Yeah, he
at
takes
the
the
end.
mask off for the train sequence, which
And then he takes it back off during the Doc Ock fight. It's the suit itself that gets ripped open during the Doc Ock fight.
Yeah, and that's the point where I don't need it. Like, he could have kept his... Well, he had to do it so that Mary Jane knew who he was.
He had to do it because he was trying to calm Otto down. He took the mask off so he could be like, hey, Otto, it's me, Peter Parker. And again, like I said, these movies are constantly looking for excuses to get him out of that mask. Because the reason he takes it off in the train scene is he's fighting Doc Ock, and Doc Ock explodes the front of the train panel, and it explodes on one of his eyes, so his eye is blacked out, so he has to take it off so he can see again. And then it's like they go, well, the fight scene's over, he can put the mask back on because audience doesn't need to know what he's emoting. He just puts it back on. He never explains why he can see again. He just puts it back on. And then he has to take it off again anyways. Yeah. That's my problem with the non-moving eyes. That's why I appreciate that we don't have to have him putting it on and taking it off so much in the new ones.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the emotion thing, but it's just like, you know, like all the... You have to think about all the real-world technology that would have to go through, like, having his eyes moving underneath the mask, matching what's going on above it.
Right.
And you're
it's less
like, why would that?
for
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, it's like, why would that be necessary?
It's like what I was saying earlier is you couldn't do that back then because audiences would reject that so fast. Because back then you couldn't have comic accuracy. You had to have your suits grounded in realism. That way people could warm up to the idea, which is why X-Men wore leather.
Yeah, for sure. You can see it big time in Wolverine wearing his leather jacket, his brown leather jacket, rather than the big blue and yellow jumpsuit that the X-Men wear. Because no one will like that. But here's the issue that I'm going to fight your Peter Parker with.
Oh.
In these Spider-Man movies, sure, it gets blown off and stuff. In Infinity War... They did the same thing by having his like, nanotech suit where his face, the mask comes off like non-stop in that movie. He almost doesn't have it on ever.
And
except for the one scene where he's fighting Thanos. Like, the rest of the movie, it's like, whoop, it's down, and look, here I am, Tony Stark, it's me, Peter Parker. Yeah, like,
okay,
it's the same issue.
But that's different because in terms of Spider-Man movies, Spider-Man Homecoming, he wears the mask the entire time he's Spider-Man. Or there's the one scene when there's two scenes when he's dressed as his homemade suit. One time he takes his mask off and throws it in the water because he's crushed by a building. Mm-hmm. The next time he takes it off because he's done with his fight with the Vulture at the very end.
See, but then his Homecoming suit doesn't have moving eyes. So.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
does
it?
It
Does.
It does.
It does.
He has candle
I don't remember it
lenses
having moving eyes.
It's not as animated as the other one because all they do is like sort of shrink and sort of.
I don't remember that, so I was gonna say that's why he takes it off,
but no, they do have animated eyes. And in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, which I know you guys don't remember too much, he doesn't take it off as much. But he still is constantly taking that mask off.
Yeah, because we got to see that hot Garfield face. Am I right? I mean, his hairstyle.
He's the hottest Peter Parker. That's all I'm saying.
All right, fuck, marry, kill. Tobey Mcguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland.
See,
I'd kill Maguire.
Yeah, I know you would.
Yeah, I know you would.
And then I'd marry Tom Holland.
And you'd fuck Garfield.
Hell yeah.
I mean, that's the order that makes sense to do. That's not the one that I would do.
Yeah.
I would kill Garfield.
Why are we playing this game?
Because I have to. I'd kill him. I would,
I was gonna say something.
See, I'd say that I'd marry Maguire, but what's the other one? Holland. Holland just looks too young. I'd feel uncomfortable fucking him, so I guess I have to marry him, and I will give Maguire a good, hot, passionate fuck. It'll last a while. Candles, incense, like the whole 9 yards.
He'll be crying the whole time. That's what he does.
Sweet tears. I'll lick him off of his face. I'll go shh.
Here's the. I was gonna say something much more family friendly. I was gonna say like, which Spider-Man do you relate to most? Because when watching these Maguire movies, the whole time I was going, if there was a Spider-Man that Alex was, I feel like this is it. Not like you're as big of a
literally all the time.
Yeah, not like because it's not even because he's.
Remember when I went down in zombies the other night and just bawled my eyes out?
It's not because you're like a crybaby.
You and he kept crying because of the friendship and
like a crybaby loser like the Spider-Man, but like you look the most like him.
Well, he's not the hottest Spider-Man, so I don't know if that's even a...
Is that a compliment?
No, but I mean, I honestly I would have to agree with you because it's not like I'm like a super genius like Tom Holland,
right?
And I'm not some like cool skater kid as like
I do. That's again,
and I think that's why Kyle and I feel like we relate to this one most because we're not super geniuses or like.
Well, I'm not a super genius either, but if I was to, and I guess I would have to extend it because if I was to relate to any Spider-Man, it'd be the one from the game. Because he's and this is one thing that
this and the next couple podcasts when we wind up talking about Spider-Man is just going to be Derek going, man, I love the game.
Well, I do love that game.
The game's so good.
But then this movie has it too.
Homecoming, I love Homecoming, but the game is just so good.
Homecoming doesn't have it. I can't think.
We should have just done a Spider-Man podcast rather than talking about... I knew this was an inevitable thing, where it was like, you can't talk about one without mentioning the other.
Right.
God, maybe we should just do different stuff for the other ones.
But I'm thinking but the thing that I relate to most with Peter Parker is he has so much going on all the time that he's always late. And he's always trying to do the right thing, but he's always late. And I relate to that most with... But I don't know, Maguire has that a lot.
Yeah, of the movies, then, I would think that you would also relate to Maguire.
Yeah, but I'm kind of an asshole, so maybe I'd... Like, if you... At school, especially, I feel like I'm much more of a Garfield. I'm not as cool as Garfield. But I'm not a skater dude, but I'm definitely not like...
I really don't
but I think
it's...
Back off, Gobby. That's not my wise-ass sense of humor.
I think it's... there's a difference between asshole and douchebaggery, and I feel like Andrew Garfield is like kind of seems like a douche because he's like that skater.
Point is,
I haven't seen
Alex is Maguire, and I've decided.
I'm okay with being Tobey Mcguire.
Yeah.
I'm Spider-Man.
Yeah, with your big, huge nose that apparently is an issue. I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, I'm definitely a Maguire. But here's the thing. I think that the other two are really unrelatable, which makes me feel like they're less of a real human.
I feel like Tom Holland's is pretty relatable.
He can be relatable,
Like,
I think.
very relatable.
I think he could be relatable more to high school students. I feel like they do a better job with the high school scene.
Yeah, like
So
I
I
see
like
a lot
that.
of Tom Holland Spider-Man in a lot of what I do, although I'm a bit more mean than he is.
Here's the real issue with his is on a level I can relate to Tom Holland because sure I mean I've never built Legos with anyone, but if there was an activity that I could see myself being, it would be like being like, hey, who wants to come over and build the Lego Death Star with me? Like, yeah, I could see doing that, but Tom Holland's Spider-Man is 100% throughout the movies fixated on trying to like prove himself to Tony Stark and then becoming an Avenger.
Right, and I can
all the
relate to that.
influences.
Because I would love
How
to be
can
that.
you relate to it?
Because all I want is to be a superhero.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
But you're not actively pursuing
Yes, you
like
can't-
making a suit and
You can't actually relate to him. Sure, you can be like, man, yeah, I also want to be a superhero
But-
real bad. But it's like, I can't be like, man, all the times that I fought for Tony Stark's attention,
Well,
man,
I know.
can really,
I know, but
I
put
can
in the
really
same
relate to
position, I feel I would be there. And the thing with his is he doesn't make a cool suit on his own. He can't do that. He made that crappy suit that I made myself. I was able to make that suit.
yeah, but does it have all the powers that
you.
And that's the thing.
No,
That's the
don't
thing,
pretend
is like,
you made it. You ordered
Whatever.
all the bits online. Anyone can do that.
you know how easy it is if I had just ordered a blue sweater and
Okay,
then a red jacket
here's
and
what's
cut the
happening.
sleeves off.
Here's what's happening for the next podcast episode. You are to show up in this room or the basement dressed in a homemade superhero outfit, not based on anyone else.
I'm
you
not
have to
gonna do that.
design it yourself.
I'm not gonna do that.
You have to get
Why
all
do
the
I
parts
have to
for
the
it.
point? I'm saying that's unrealistic. That's what this Spider-Man does.
All of them are unrealistic if you're looking. How does he make the goddamn eyes move like that?
Yeah, that's the one thing. But he
Ooh,
uses
one thing.
unrealistic.
He
One
uses
thing.
camera lenses, but I don't know how that works.
Nobody does.
Still, yeah.
Yeah, no one knows how that works.
But see, that's the like with Tobey Maguire, like he doesn't make web shooters. He just shoots them out of his hands.
yeah, but
himself.
that's uncomfortable to think about. So
But yeah, all he has is a suit. His suit doesn't do really anything.
It's literally just a costume.
Yeah,
It doesn't
to
even
conceal
hold
his
up.
yeah,
identity.
it rips nonstop.
So there, that's
So
the
it
most
feels
realistic
more realistic.
costume of all of
No,
them.
Holland's is the most realistic costume.
But all
No.
the tech in it.
No, that's the Tony Stark suit. I'm talking about his suit.
Tom Holland
Still.
still made web shooters. Tom Holland still made lenses
He's
that can track
smart.
his eye motions.
He's
Yes,
smart.
and unrelatable. Thank you.
No,
Moving
that's
on.
not relatable.
Other thing, okay. Other
You
things-
goobers just never took AP classes. You don't know the struggles.
I've taken AP classes. Yes.
Yeah.
AP Lang doesn't do much for making web shooters. I'll tell you that much.
Bet.
AP Stats doesn't either, or AP Music Theory. So can't really make web shooters in any of those.
Anyways, we got very derailed. Spider-Man 2 is a good one.
Yes, it's real good. And here's what
Greatest
works.
villain of the
Doc
trilogy.
Ock's good.
I have always debated this as to whether or not I prefer Green Goblin or Doc Ock. I think they're both great characters, and they both in their own way are real scary. Green Goblin is like a real menacing, psychotic motherfucker. For
Yeah.
sure. And he's
Like,
he's
remember
one of
that
the
one
things-
time he scooted in on his little scooter at the parade and...
Other than then, he is still like the part that always scared me in the first Spider-Man movie was
Is
when
when he's
he's
dressed
in
as
the
the lady.
He's in the burning building.
Oh, yeah, the
crying,
jump
and
scare.
then he turns around. And he's like ah, like I was like holy shit.
And they use that stock
Stock
scream
scream,
too.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know, but as a kid, every single time, I always was sitting there going, "That's Green Goblin. I know it's Green Goblin," and I'd always still get tense and scared when it would happen.
Would you do the Spider-Man 3?
He's scary.
Now that you're older, do you do the Spider-Man 3 when you know it's Green Goblin, but instead of getting scared like you did when you were a kid, you do the Spider-Man comeback to Hobgoblin and you go, ooh,
Do you think Green Goblin just took that like stock scream and like put it in his?
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's in his helmet. He just presses
He's like,
the
well, I
button.
can't, afford anything else.
He's
I
got
can't.
2 thumb buttons. One is for an old lady crying, and the other one's a stock scream.
Yeah.
And then the other one's his pumpkin bombs. Right?
Just
He's got 3 buttons: cry, scream, and pumpkin bomb.
exactly. But Doc Ock has that scene, and the one that I think should have had like an ass ton of blood is when they're trying to remove the arms from his back in the hospital, and he just like slaughters those people.
And that's like the
and he whips out the blades.
It's such a
and
good
stuff.
scene.
It is.
Yeah,
It's so
such a good
good,
scene.
but and it's scary. Like that's an intense moment where he just like kills all these people. But I mean, that's the one where if there should have been blood in the movie, it would have been there.
Yeah, that's the internet's favorite thing to be like, Sam Raimi, director of Evil Dead, how can you tell? And then they play that clip.
Yeah.
And he's even got the chainsaw. It's a nice Evil Dead reference, and the doctor pulls a chainsaw. Why is there a chainsaw there? I don't know if they actually use those in real life. Probably not.
Probably not.
But he's got the chainsaw anyways, and he's fighting.
Nurse,
armor.
quick, pass me the surgical chainsaw.
They're doing like brain surgery.
Just got through the head.
Yeah.
I went a bit too far.
Dog, it seems we've cut too far. Just have his heads hanging on.
Maybe we should use something a little more precise than this chainsaw.
I chalk that up to comic book like surgery being like, I need the surgical chainsaw, but then real world like Scare where he just slaughters them all right there.
It's
Like,
a
that's
nice-
a little less comic book.
It's a nice contrast, this surgery, to the one that they perform in Saw 3 that's unbearably gory and hard to watch. It's so real.
The opposite to me is like in this one they almost took off his like back spines, and I don't know what that would have been like, but it reminded me this time for sure that part in X-Men 3 when Archangel's like trying to saw off his own wings, and it's like,
Oh, that's
gross.
rough.
So that's like if that surgery had gone on, that's like what I was picturing. I was like, oh, this is gonna be gross, like that X-Men 3 part.
Yeah,
I
now
hated
you gave me
watching
Shark
the kid.
Boy and Lava Girl flashbacks because it's the same kid.
This podcast is crashing hard.
Oh, you know what, fellas? Speaking of the
what
superheroes
other
we grew up
franchise can
with.
we shoehorn in here?
Speaking of the
Have you all
superheroes we
seen
grew
Howard
up
the
with.
Duck before? Let's talk about Howard the Duck, shall we?
The superheroes we grew up with are the Spy Kids and
Holy
Shark
shit,
Boy and Lava
Spy
Girl.
Kids. Oh, I'm thankful for Spy Kids. Anyway, yeah, I think we're done with 2. 2's good. I like Doc Ock.
I like the ending.
I like
Very
it.
emotional.
I like how you in the first one with Green Goblin you kind of get like a psychotic like crazy villain, but in the second one you get more of like a brute kind of villain. So he gets to fight like kind of both.
And in the third one, you get both and some.
Did you guys piddle for this one?
Oh
The
yeah,
second one, yeah.
How much?
Filled up my other shoe. I had to change that.
Dude.
I filled up both of Alex's shoes.
Yeah, he did. It was
right,
nuts.
right after he cleaned them too. I waited.
Good thing I have like 12 pairs of shoes.
Yeah, I filled all my shoes with urine.
All 2 pairs.
It won't stop.
All 2 pairs and my flip-flops. So
Oh, you filled those.
I filled my flip-flops. Lots of pee for this movie. It's definitely one of my favorite superhero movies ever made.
Which version? Spider-Man 2 or Spider-Man 2.1?
I only ever watched 2.1, and unfortunately I don't have a cut comparison to
You know what's
look at the differences
great
between them. So
is I remember as a kid making it such a big deal. Anytime my dad would go to put on Spider-Man 2, is it 2.1? Because it has to be. Or like
Yeah,
X-Men, I'd be
X-Men
like, it's
2.1.
1.5, right?
Yeah.
It's 1.5 because we can't have it any other way. And then this time when I watched it, I clicked off and then I was scrolling through the Voodoo list and I was like, why is there 2 versions of this movie? Oh, shoot. I totally watched the wrong version.
Yeah, you know, what I found... Oh, you did watch 2?
I watched 2, not 2.1.
Yeah.
And then
I
the
don't know.
editor's
I don't know
cut
what the
of
difference
Spider-Man 3, I was like, that's 6 minutes shorter. So I just watched the
So
normal
that one
Spider-Man
is shorter.
3.
Okay. I discovered that while I was watching them. I didn't know that there was a second version of Spider-Man 3. So I just watched the regular one, so I don't
so
know
did
what
I.
the difference is.
I watched regular Spidey.
It was on a whole
3.
fucking bonus disc that was not disclosed anywhere on the packaging, so I had no knowing that there was a new version of Spider-Man 3 that this boy ain't seen before.
The editor's cut.
But let's talk about Spider-Man 3, shall we?
I swear it gets a little insane, but
this one, you know what? It's not that crazier than the other movies.
It was my favorite as a kid.
Oh my god,
I was so obsessed with Venom.
Kidding? Venom and Sandman
I-
Hobgoblin.
Hobgoblin was the
movie?
one that I got
Excuse
hyped
me?
about.
What?
I remember as a kid, we used to have arguments on the walk to the library from the pool that we used to go to with our summer camp when we'd be like, no, listen. There are 3 different people. There's Green Goblin, Hobgoblin, and New Goblin. They're different people.
Right. Yeah.
And we would argue about it all the time. And I'd be like, I'm pretty sure New Goblin and Hobgoblin might be the same. I don't know. I don't know. We'd argue about it.
Topher Grace isn't...
He's not actually horrible in this movie.
No,
Really? I didn't like him.
He's
He's
not,
more tolerable than he was in Predators.
I disagree. I liked him more in Predators, I think.
He's
He made
not
me laugh.
the best to be
Venom.
Venom, but it goes back to kind of that like normal guy turned
Right.
villain or turned hero.
Are you telling me Tom Hardy's weird ass portrayal of Eddie Brock isn't relatable? Tom Hardy's portrayal of Topher Grace's portrayal of Eddie Brock.
It's tough to say which one's the right one.
Alright. Here he is, Peter Parker, your friendly neighborhood, He's come a long way from being the boy who was bit by a spider. Back then, nothing seemed to go right for him. Now, people really like him. The city is safe and sound. Guess he has something to do with that. His Uncle Ben would be proud. He still goes to school, top of his class, and he's in love with the girl of his dreams. Nothing could go wrong. Except, of course, there is an alien symbiote that attaches itself to Peter, and later to Eddie Brock, to become Venom. And there's an ex-con who has somehow gotten sand powers, and his best friend Harry's taken up his father's mantle, and is now a supervillain. In this film, Peter becomes emo, and no one is safe. Not Eddie Brock, not Mary Jane, not the cutie pies walking on the sidewalk.
Not Aunt May.
And if you're not careful, you might wind up in his crosshairs, and he might put some dirt in your eyes.
Oh.
The movie ends in a massive way, sends off the franchise, and that's Spider-Man 3.
So then which villain is your favorite?
In this movie?
Yeah.
Hobgoblin.
Jesus. Yeah, probably the Hobgoblin.
Most relatable. And I feel
But
for him.
I
I don't like the amnesia subplot.
I don't like calling him a villain, though. 'cause
He's not really a villain.
not
The
a
amnesia,
villain.
He's a villain for the first 10 minutes, and then he's a villain
Yeah.
for like a middle portion of like 30 minutes randomly.
The amnesia thing is a huge problem for me because I just don't like how it's like, oh, we forgot everything. Oh,
And then he remembers it all.
Yeah, and then he remembers it. So
It's just like, what's the point?
Yeah.
The thing
Well,
is...
I mean, there's kind of a point to where he's like friends with Peter now or whatever.
I didn't hate the amnesia. I didn't care for
It just seemed like an easy way out.
I hated James Franco's acting with amnesia, where he's like, "Oh, hey guys, hey, it's just me. I'm just a sweet little guy."
Yeah.
Hey guys,
Yeah, where
it's
he turned into a different person.
I didn't have that
what
much
the
of a
hell?
problem.
It's so weird.
It felt like he's
Super
changed his
weird.
voice. Yeah.
I didn't have
Well,
that. I didn't notice
So
that.
like walking through the hallway, and he's like, "Hey, is this my house? Is this where I lived?" "Yes, buddy, it is." "Did you get brain damage beyond amnesia? You sound retarded. What the hell?"
Well, I asked because Sandman is my favorite.
Really?
Is he?
Yeah, I like.
He's pretty sympathetic.
Yeah,
Big
that's
time,
That's
yeah, big
what
time.
it is. And the scene where he is intertwined with the sand, and then he tries to pick up that ring.
Yeah, that's
and it
that.
falls
That
through
used
his
to always
hand.
make me very
Yeah,
upset.
that hits you hard.
And when he melts in the water, you're feeling bad for him.
Well, at that point, it was not really, because they hadn't explained much of his backstory. It was sad when the ring fell through his hand, because it was like he was trying to hold on to, and you knew he cared for his daughter. But then you also learn that he's the one that killed Uncle Ben, and so at the point where he turns into the water,
And they
mud,
show you-
it's a little less of oh, I care for him. It's more of I don't know how to feel for him. But at the end,
They show you that-
redo the flashback.
Yeah, I was gonna say they show you that mislead flashback to make
Yeah.
you really hate him.
Mm-hmm.
But they show you that last one at the very end of the movie, and Peter looks at him and goes,
I forgive you. There's a good deleted scene.
Off.
That's what I like about him.
There's a good deleted scene with Sandman that comes right after he floats off, where
he goes back home.
It's his daughter is all healthy now, and she's playing in a park, building sandcastles.
Oh, and isn't he just like watching her?
Or
what?
She's like building sandcastles and like being like, I love you, Dad. And then the mom's like, time to go. And then they leave, and she turns around, and the sandcastle she built is gone. So it was like it was him, and he was.
Oh,
I thought
nice. I remembered it being that.
I think
she was,
I think he does watch
and...
it. I think he is watching her at the start of that scene.
I don't know. I think I've only seen it once, but
yeah, I saw it on Instagram. I saw it on Instagram recently. I was like, really? Oh, that's kind of cool.
Because they knew it's Raimi time.
Yeah,
that's pizza time.
Pizza time all the time. That's why this Peter Parker's such a goober, is because he has lines like that, and the way he says it, it's not like he's just such a goof.
Yeah, that part makes me so sad when she goes, I'm not paying for it, and you're like, oh, he's going to lose his job, though, and he just sits there,
it makes you
down
sad?
With pride, and he leaves.
I think it's kind of funny when he just sits there and he undoes the things that...
I care for this Peter Parker.
He's played up for laughs, because then it's like right before that, what's he doing? He's fighting 3 mops that are trying to jump out of the closet.
Yes.
So,
Do you think he would have been on time if he hadn't fought those 3
I was
mops?
wondering about that, because he looks at the clock and it's like 03, so he was 3 minutes late.
Well, I mean... I think another thing I was obsessed with when this came out was the Black Suit Spider-Man.
Yeah, I was.
Good God, yeah.
Because it's so cool.
Yeah.
You know what? I didn't even think it looked that cool watching it again. I was like, it doesn't stand out as much as...
It was so cool as a kid.
Yeah, it was cool as a kid.
That was a big deal.
Yeah, but like now that I've been exposed to so many more Spider-Man suits, I'm like, it's alright, I guess.
And Venom was a big deal back then, too.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. In superhero film, to this point, as a kid, you'd never really seen hero fight anti-hero.
What year is this?
This was 2002, so this was real early on.
No, what year is Spider-Man 3?
Oh, geez, yeah, good point.
I was like, because we're well into the superhero
I want to say 2007.
phase at this point.
2007 sounds right.
Yeah, 7, that would mean it's right before
2007.
MCU.
But again, you hadn't seen you hadn't seen Iron Man fight evil Iron Man, and you hadn't seen, Black Panther fight bad Black Panther. So this was not an overdone thing. At this point it is, and it's no longer fun to watch. It's like, oh look, Ant-Man's fighting evil Ant-Man. That's cool, I guess. Come on, think of a new villain. But back then it was like, oh, that's Spider-Man fighting evil Spider-Man.
Yeah,
they're equally matched,
same,
and who's got the upper hand, and how are they going to do it? And it it forces Spider-Man to be a little more inventive than the way he fights his other villains, because he can't use his normal tricks because the other villain can use his tricks.
And I like with Venom in this movie the way he mimics Spider-Man without being him. He shoots webs, but they're not actually webs, they're tendrils, which is why they make that elasticy noise and they snap a whole bunch. Mm-hmm. I think that's all really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it felt fresh, and honestly, even still watching it again, it wasn't like, oh, here we go, another hero fighting anti-hero. It's not the same thing again, so...
It's funny that you use anti-hero as the term when that's...
Or
means something totally different.
Yeah, I know, but
I understand
version of the hero,
right?
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with that in modern movies, though.
I do,
but
at this point, I swear to God, if Captain Marvel comes out and it's, oh look, here's Captain Marvel, watch her fight the juxtaposition of a boy Captain Marvel who's a bad guy.
There are some.
Oh, here comes whoever else down the line fighting the evil version of himself. Even in Logan, it was the greatest matchup is Wolverine fighting clone Wolverine, and I was like, well, fuck's sake, he fought, the clone Wolverine in X-Men 2, he fought Sabretooth. It's come up with new fucking villains.
There are certain occasions when I have a problem with it, such as Black Panther and Doctor Strange, but there's a lot, I'm fine with it for the most part. So in this movie, I was not. It didn't bother me. The only time that it bothers me is that weird scene when he's whipping around, Venom's whipping around looking for Sandman. It just feels weird. But that's more of a problem I have with the pacing of the movie that I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute.
Oh, just because Like
this
he
movie
gets
is
the symbiote on him immediately, and then you don't see him at all, and then he just
and then he's
immediately
just
catches up
Spider,
with Sandman.
and then he's just Sandman. This
Yeah.
movie is two good movies. This movie is two good movies mixed into one bad movie, or it's not even that bad, but one messy movie. You have a great movie where you could either have Peter versus Hobgoblin and Sandman, or Hobgoblin and Venom, or you could have another good one of like Peter versus Sandman and Venom, or Sandman and Hobgoblin, or whatever. You can mix and match, right? The issue is that they did it all as one, which was not Sam Raimi's intention. He wanted Venom to be his own thing because he didn't know enough about Venom when he made this movie, but the studio forced him to put Venom in.
Hence the line, "I am Venom," rather than "We are Venom."
Right.
Like, come on.
What a mistake.
Good old Sony, even back in 2007, is messing with
ruining their
own movies. Yeah. So the movie, the first half of this movie feels like a well-paced movie. It lets things progress naturally, and then all of a sudden you get to it's not even the second half, it's like literally the last 30 minutes, and they go, well, it's time to wrap things up so everyone meets and it's over. And it just goes way too fast.
I really only felt it with Venom being the one that was like oddly done quickly, and it's because they put him in the last act of the movie. It was like symbiote hits Brock finds Sandman, big finale, and that's all you get of Venom. So it goes real quick.
I think, yeah. If I were to have done
the rest of it feels flushed out.
Well, see, because with like you see Green Goblin and everything throughout all three movies.
Yeah,
basically. So that one just kind of comes along, you know.
Yeah.
And they show Sandman's origin, which is why you see a little bit more of him. But I don't know if you see him as much. Well, no, I guess you see him a little bit more. Because then they talk about his relation with Uncle Ben and stuff. So yeah, I feel like maybe this one could have been Sandman and Goblin, and then Venom could have been its own.
Right, and if I were to have redone it, or if I were to have done it in the first place, and they had said, you're guaranteed a Spider-Man 4, the way I would have done it is, the movie is the same, meteor crashes at the start, symbiote attaches to Peter's bike, he doesn't put on the black suit until the final battle, and then he takes things too far. Or maybe not until the final battle, maybe he puts it on at like the halfway mark, and he is consumed by the symbiote. He does the final battle, maybe he takes things too far and he does wind up getting Harry killed, and that's when he realizes, I can't wear this because this thing
rips it off.
Rips it off. It'll land on Eddie Brock. Maybe we don't even see it.
And the credits roll.
Yeah, well, no.
The credits roll. It lands on Brock, and then he looks at the camera as a post-credit scene.
But like,
and you're like, oh, Venom's the next one.
Yeah, he'd rip the suit off, throw it. You could show it hit Eddie Brock. You don't have to. It doesn't matter. It makes sense. Maybe he's there taking pictures of the fight, and it just gets on him.
And then bam, credits.
But then you'd have
smash cut.
Well, then
the first movie starts again.
Then you would be able to have the moment of Peter being like, "Okay, now that I'm back under my own control here, I forgive you, Sandman." And then you could have an emotional end with Peter and Harry. And then the next one you could do whatever they want to do with Venom, make it its own thing, or you could throw Vulture in there like they were originally gonna. Do another movie, but don't make it all as one, because it's too much in this movie.
Yeah, it was a little too much.
Honestly, the one I feel like they did a good job fleshing out Eddie Brock for the most part.
Yeah,
and he didn't have Venom on him long enough, I feel.
I don't think,
but the character was developed enough. The one that I think that they needed to work on a little more was Sandman. I
was kind of thinking that.
Yeah, because you don't get to know his daughter very well either, so you don't know what he's fighting for.
His story goes so quickly because it's like, here he is at the very beginning of the movie. He gets, he goes home, but his wife or his ex-wife makes him leave, and then he goes, like, falls into a pit, becomes Sandman, and then you miss a big section of the movie, and then you get the flashback of him killing Uncle Ben, and then Peter goes to kill him, and but you don't know much about Sandman, and then he's gone forever. And then he comes back, and he immediately meets up with Venom, who's like, work with me, and it honestly feels a little weird because he's like, I don't want to be a bad guy the whole movie, but then he still is in that huge like massive fight where he wants to kill Spider-Man. Like his thing, he felt a little shoehorned to me, where it was like, it's a big movie, we got the number 3 on it, let's make 3 villains in there, like, make this big, and it feels big, it really does, it feels like a big spectacle movie, but
I wish we saw
I do
more.
think that he was really shoehorned in there and needed to be fleshed out a little
I
more.
wish we saw more minor fights with Sandman and Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That way you would see a little bit more of him, but they do a good job with
I don't know.
doing...
They have 2 fights together. 3 fights together.
Yeah,
They have
like
their-
the one in the
car, and they have one underground.
Oh, yeah.
and then the big one.
So I don't know that you necessarily need.
I don't
more
know.
Fights,
They just feel so small.
I think, well, to me,
Like-
Sandman had enough action in the movie. He didn't have enough story. In the
Right.
movie.
That's how I feel about it.
Whereas Eddie Brock and Venom had a lot of story in the movie, but not enough action in the movie to make it feel
Venom
balanced.
certainly has
So-
no personality in this movie.
Yeah, which is an issue.
And I'm not like a Venom fanboy, but like definitively,
You really know that new Venom movie did it right.
yeah,
when you watch
definitively the new Venom movie is better, a better portrayal of the character. Like,
Yeah.
for sure.
you can't argue that.
Yeah, that's why they probably should have done a Venom only Spider-Man in this like series if they could have done a 4th one.
Yep.
I did note that the special effects in this movie took a noticeable drop. In Spider-Man 2,
They're pretty good.
I really didn't see a point where I was like, oh, that was bad. Like, in Spider-Man 1, it's
A lot.
wrestler suit climbing up walls, and it looks
Not even
rubber
just
and
that. It's like when he's
animated.
jumping around the city. Specifically, there's a scene in the original one, and he's jumping from rooftop to rooftop, and it's like a green screen where Tobey Mcguire's staring straight up into the sky, which is the camera, and every time he jumps, his face gets real close. That seems also horrible.
Oh, there was. Did we forget about the first one where Mary Jane is swinging on Spider-Man, and he's just clearly a mannequin that's just like stiff, like swinging,
And her hair's
blowing the wrong way. Yeah,
Yeah. So, obviously
that's not CGI, but still.
Yeah, not the best special effects work in the first movie. Second movie, I thought it was good. I didn't think that there was anything wrong with it.
Yeah, I didn't have a big problem with it.
Spider-Man 3 in the beginning of the movie,
Big oof.
for sure. The end of the movie, I thought, Sandman could have looked better, but it didn't look bad.
There's the way the special effects for me went is starts bad, ends bad, everything in the middle's good.
Yeah, the ending of the movie I really didn't have a big issue with, but the
was
beginning
okay.
fight with Spider-Man and Hobgoblin down
boy.
that alley looks so bad. So bad.
It actually looks worse than modern day video games.
I mean, it was obvious green screen work, like way too obvious green screen work, and it was rough. That one was rough.
It's surprisingly the one superhero movie that utilizes green screen that I can think of that's worse than a DCEU movie.
I would not say it's worse than a DCEU movie because this was the only point where I had that issue. It was like
This scene.
Okay, yeah, this scene. Yeah, I don't know. I still think that the DCEU this is real fucking bad.
No, this was worse.
It's real bad.
This is worse.
But for 2002, I think like if this was a
Why do
modern
you
movie,
keep
that'd
thinking
be
that this is
2007? Jesus, whatever. It's not that far off.
Think about how good the special effects in the first Iron Man are. They're amazing. They're still really good.
Yeah, but does he fight anyone down an alley? That's a tough effect to do because it's moving so quickly.
Iron Man flies around fighting fighter jets.
But not in a tight spot like this.
Wow.
I'm just saying,
Can't
I
fight
think
fighter jets in an alley.
for the time...
For the time, this still looked bad.
I don't know.
King Kong had way better
God
stuff.
damn it, I hate when he brings up King Kong.
Because it's so good!
He's so bad.
And the special effects when he's running through there's a big
Movies
fight.
I'm not thankful for, King Kong.
There's a fight in an alley scene in that movie. There's a
Oh
fight
yeah, when King Kong's running through the alley.
when Kong's trying to catch Jack in the alley. And it looks so much better than this.
Okay.
And it was green screened there, too.
Okay, this looks bad. Yes, it looks bad.
Say it. I want to hear you say that for the time this looks bad.
I don't think it did. I don't like back then. I'm sure that I could have still been like, "Oh, that was not real," but I don't think I would have like.
You know what it
vomited
reminded
in my
me
seat
of?
Going, "Oh, that was so bad. Oh, the special effects were so bad."
It legitimately reminded me of Spy Kids. When Spy Kids as a kid, I never really knew what was wrong with it, but I'd watch it and I'd be like, something here looks surprisingly weird. And it was like I saw it on Disney Channel or whatever channel years later, and I was like, oh, it's a green screen. That's what it is. When I was watching this scene, I was like, something here feels very familiar, and then it hit me, and I was like, oh, Spy Kids. This is as bad as Spy Kids.
I don't know. Yeah, I just thought that it was a big step down in special effects between 2 and 3.
Yep.
Yeah.
This movie's a big step down from 2 to 3. In general, everything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate this
This is
movie.
where I start having a problem with Peter. Well, I guess there's problems in 2 also, but I've got a bigger problem with this Peter Parker because he starts to get all emo and
he hits Mary Jane.
weird. Yeah.
I'm like, you don't come back from that.
I mean, yeah, but it was the symbiote.
Yeah, but still.
It makes
I
you
don't know.
cringy.
How do you
Yeah.
think they're gonna? How do you think that relationship's gonna go after this point? Do you think she's gonna be like, "Hey, Peter, remember that one time you decked me?"
Man, they left it on a note with them because she was like still singing in that bar, and he just comes in, and that's like where it ends.
No, they dance. They dance
but,
together.
I mean, you really don't know what comes of that. It's pretty crazy. Like, it's pretty obvious that there's more planned to that story.
I don't know. It's
It felt like a bit of an unnatural end, whereas the rest of the movie, I was good with the way it concluded. Like, I felt like
I
they
was
wrapped
sad
up
that
enough
Harry died.
storylines.
well, see, it starts to become a problem because then he starts to become less relatable because it's like, oh, I can't relate to something coming over me and
Right.
whatever.
But again,
So-
that's kind of when the symbiote's attached to him. Peter Parker does become less relatable, but he also becomes more comic. Like less.
But it's not.
Less real.
I don't know if I would say it's a problem.
Yeah.
I guess it's just that
The good
like,
thing is that the montage
cringy.
that everyone hates, the cringy montage, it's very short.
Yeah, and it's hilarious. I'll
is
be
so
damned
funny.
if I didn't laugh for that whole thing.
If that
And
wasn't intentional, I think it was. It was definitely
it had to
intentional.
be. When you have full shots of nothing but Peter Parker's hands shooting finger guns different directions
And-
3 times in a row, and you don't see what he's pointing at, it's like, yes, this was made to be a joke.
And all the girls around him that he's like shooting the finger guns at, they're all like looking at him like he's a freak. Everyone's looking
Yeah.
at him like he's a weirdo. So it was definitely intentional. But seeing, I can understand why Venom fans would be like, nope. But it's not as bad as everyone makes it out.
Maybe the symbiote was just having some fun, and he's like, oh man, I want to make this kid look like an idiot.
He already knows. He's like, I hate this guy. I need a new host. But
I'll
that
tell
being
you-
said, we'll have some fun.
The one part of Dark Peter Parker that I did like, not Black Suit Spider-Man, but Dark Peter Parker, was where he goes to Harry's house and they duke it out like fist to fist.
That's good.
Oh yeah.
I was like, man, this is cool. I thought that was definitely
Specifically when Harry throws that bomb at him and he just
Whips
whips
it
it
right
right
back
back
at
at
him.
him.
Yeah.
That's good.
cool. Yeah.
And it's then from that point it's so satisfying at the end when you see the two of them fight side by side.
Yeah.
You feel rewarded. Yeah.
Definitely. See, I think that this movie has a lot of good in it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a lot of fun. It does have problems, but
Which is why I don't think it's necessarily goofier or worse than the others. I think it's on the level of Spider-Man. Spider-Man 2 is the outlier for me. Spider-Man 2 is the like really good one. The other two are goofy and dumb, but I still enjoy it.
I piddled.
Yeah, I guess I piddled as much as I did for the first one.
Yeah. I don't think I filled my shoes this time, but
Yeah. As a kid, I did.
Yeah, well, as a kid,
I
for
filled
sure.
the room with piss.
yeah.
But yeah,
This time it was a piddle.
But how many ounces of organic web stored in your wrist out of infinite do you give these movies, Alex?
17.
17 out of infinite. I couldn't think of like a cap. What would there be? Like how much organic web can you store in an arm?
I don't want to find that.
We'll leave that for the comments to decide.
How much
Let us
web
know
can
how
fit
many
in your arm?
ounces of organic web will generate in an arm before it caps.
We're
Blasts
expecting a lot of
itself
math here with how much spiders can produce, and then you have to translate that to how much a human arm or a human body could produce.
I think if he just like doesn't use his web powers, it builds to a point where it forces webs out. He's sleeping in the middle of the night and webs his bed.
He webs his bed. Oh man, I webbed my bed again.
All right, let's overall franchise notes and determine, is this the best franchise ever?
And Saw is our contender.
And Saw, Saw
Yeah.
is our contender.
I have
Is
to-
the Spider-Man franchise better than Saw?
We did a lot at the beginning talking about all three, so I don't know if I have much more to say.
Here's one thing that I didn't mention that I want to mention now is the Bruce Campbell cameos in all the
Hell
movies.
yeah.
I fucking loved them. Especially in the third movie. God damn, I was cracking up. He's so funny.
The third
So
movie,
good. When he's
his
doing the
whole
little
scene
French
is great.
thing. Oh, it's so funny.
When he keeps having to send the guys away in the background too.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So good. And sad thing is, Derek said that the initial plan was that he was Mysterio.
He's
and
Mysterio.
that each cameo was just Mysterio being Mysterio.
Hmm.
And it was going to culminate to a big Spider-Man 4 reveal.
Yeah,
I thought that
but
would've been
Spider-Man
so
4,
good.
he wasn't even the main villain for that movie. He was like your hobgoblin, where they have a scene at the beginning together.
Yeah, I mean,
But still, that would have
sorta
been
like
a cool reveal to be like, hey, look, this guy was Mysterio. You'd
Yeah.
be like, oh
Yeah.
damn.
I still like to think of it in my mind like that. When I was watching this, I was picturing him as Mysterio, and whether or not he fights Spider-Man, it was like,
Yeah, that's
I liked it. I
the
thought
thing
it
with
was a
these
fun
movies is
theory.
they have a lot of good world building
Yeah.
that they never got to go with. Like Dr. Connors being Peter's teacher.
Yeah, they did do that a lot too.
And
He was
he's
supposed
going to be the lizard, and
Or,
you have a
yeah,
whole bunch
the
of other
lizard.
references to characters that are comic characters.
I feel like there's so much they wanted to do, which is kind of why
Uh-huh.
the third one was such a jumbled mess.
Mhm.
Because like we want to do all the villains, and we want to
Yeah.
get all these references in.
Spider-Man
but-
4 sounds equally as convoluted when you hear their plans for is going to be Mysterio at the start, Vulture's your main villain, there's a Vulturess that will eventually become Black Cat towards the end. Sounds equally as convoluted.
Yeah, but and honestly, as badly as I would have liked to see more of these, and especially as a kid, I wish they had never ended. But I think that this trilogy as a whole works real well.
Yeah,
I think that it's fine.
I'm okay with it ending.
Yeah,
Although I'd love to see what they did with the villains in that like universe,
Mhm.
because I don't know, I like it.
And then as a kid, you always thought that Spider-Man 4 was going to be about Carnage, just because that's what everyone would say.
yeah,
And
that's
that-
right. That was the big theory.
There is no truth to that at all.
Yeah.
Sam Raimi hated Venom and was like, I knew nothing about the character.
I mean, honestly, I'm giving Spider-Man best franchise ever.
Best franchise
I'm
ever.
saying it beats Saw.
I would say it beats Saw.
Well, my vote doesn't matter, so I'm going to say...
No, it matters. It's just that it's 2v1.
At this point, it doesn't matter
All
what I
votes
say, because
matter, everybody.
Spider-Man is the best franchise, according to the podcast so far. That being said, Predator's better.
No,
See, I feel like the Spider-Man beats all the movies that we.
I
All
really
the
do. I really
franchises.
think that Spider-Man.
I don't think
would be
it...
the best.
I think this goes back to the problem we had with Predator. Or no, the problem we had with Halloween, where I think that Spider-Man 2 is the best movie we've covered so far on the podcast, but...
Wow. Even more than like Halloween 2018.
You know what, now that I said that, I thought of the Halloween movies and I was like, oh, I'm not sure I agree with that. But I think you could argue that Spider-Man 2... I think I could argue to myself that Spider-Man 2 is the best, without thinking too much about it, that we've covered on the franchise or on the podcast. But as a series, I don't think it's as solid as some of the others. But I'd still probably say Spider-Man's best franchise.
It's just like, I feel like, to me, like when we have when we talk about, say, Predators, we have, or the Predator franchise, we've got some really good ones, but then we've got some really bad ones. And then we just say the same thing with Saw. We got some really, really good ones, and we got some really bad ones. And then again with Halloween, you've got some really good ones, but you have some really bad
really
ones.
fucking bad ones.
Yeah.
So, but then
I have not finished the zombie Halloween movies. I can't finish that second one.
But yeah, and then I feel like we talk about Spider-Man, and we get 3 movies, and it's like, well,
one of them's amazing, and the other 2 are all right.
Sure. I feel like we can all agree that none of them stand out. They're like, wow, this movie's trash.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They're all bare.
You don't have a Saw 7. You don't have a Halloween Resurrection. I think
fair enough.
I think that the highs are higher than most of the movies that we talked about. Like Derek said, Spider-Man 2, maybe the best one we've reviewed, if you don't think about it too hard.
Yeah.
But the lows are still
and
better.
the lows,
that's
are
the
not
difference.
that
The lows
low.
aren't as low.
Mhm.
Because now that I think about it more, the high, I'd still probably say I liked 3 of the Halloweens more than I like this. But in terms of the lows, they never get as low as in any other franchise. Even Topher Grace doesn't Topher Grace all over this movie enough to bring it down to Predator's level.
Oh man, I Topher Graced all over my bed again.
And I think that as a franchise, the reason Halloween lost is because it had highs and it had lows, but as a franchise, it was not great.
Exactly.
Spider-Man, on the other hand, it's 3 movies, which granted makes it easy to watch, but it's also like you don't dread watching any of them. You can make it through them all real well, and they all feel real connected, and it's... I think as a franchise, especially, it does work really well.
Yeah,
even if the movies themselves are not the best movies ever made, the franchise itself works as a good franchise.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think, though, there is something to be said for the fact that this is the first time that I've watched the Raimi trilogy in 7 minimum years. Maybe more. Probably more. Whereas I've watched the others. I've watched movies from the others. Much more frequently. This Raimi franchise, I haven't watched standalone movies from it. Like, I haven't ever popped on Spider-Man and just watched that for 10 years minimum. 7 to 10 years.
Yeah, see, the problem with me is I have some bad OCD when it comes to watching movies, so I've never just watched a standalone movie. I usually watch a full franchise whenever I do it. And this is an easy, good one for me.
You didn't even finish your initial marathon of this.
Yeah, I know, because a bunch of other things started popping up. We started watching a bunch of horror movies. I tried to marathon these like when I first bought them, and I watched the first 2, and when I got to the third one, it was like, Derek, look, I got the Chucky Blu-ray set, let's go watch those. Oh, it's Friday the 13th, let's marathon those, and it got lost.
I did realize that while watching Spider-Man 2, I was like, oh man, I saw like the whole second half of this movie until the very final battle. I was like, I must have just sat in Kyle's room and watched it. But yeah, I don't know. Best
Congratulations, Spider-Man. You've dethroned Saw, and you will hold this for the foreseeable future.
Until we do another franchise, yeah.
Well, the next 2 franchises I think we have lined up, this is definitely going to hold itself.
Okay.
It's gonna.
I can only think of one franchise we have lined up next.
Yeah, I haven't told you the December podcasts yet. But
Home Alone.
yes.
No way! I don't want to watch all 5 of those.
Man.
Home Alone, that's the December
There's
franchise.
2 good ones. There's 3 bad ones.
Ah, damn it.
Give me a better Christmas franchise.
Elf.
That's not a franchise.
a
You can't do that.
I don't want to watch those movies.
Grandma got ran over by a reindeer.
How many of those are there?
I'm pretty sure there's 2.
Hell
God.
yeah.
I still think that Spider-Man would hold itself over that, so...
I don't know, have you seen them?
I think I've seen the first one.
Well.
But I haven't seen the second one. I bet you haven't seen all 5 Home Alone movies either, though. I've seen the first 4.
Honestly, don't know if I've even seen one all the way through.
What?
What
They
the
never
hell?
interested me.
Oh my goodness.
Okay,
Didn't
scratch
sound-
that.
No, wait.
We're doing Home Alone.
I just don't know which one.
Just to get Alex
Yo.
cultured, we're doing Home Alone.
Exactly.
Oh, I know all about it.
It's happening.
God.
December.
Uh,
But,
It's
until...
November.
Yeah, but it is November.
Right now.
And the future episodes are going to be a mystery, but if you listen to this podcast real close, you could probably guess all 3 of them, because I think at points we mentioned each of them. I don't want to explicitly say what they will be. You got to come back
It's
and
the
find
month
out.
of spiders. Next week is going to be Amazing Spider-Man. The week after that, all MCU appearances of Spider-Man, and we'll end it with the game.
He's lying. That's not it. That was the meme. That's what we claimed was
I
gonna
got
happen,
so
but
excited for that.
Why don't we just have a spider theme? We'll find some other spider movies.
Eight-legged freak.
I was going to say,
Shelob.
wow,
You got me
went
on
over
that
my
one.
head. Son of Godzilla has a big spider.
I'm sure there's a movie called Tarantula out there somewhere.
There is.
I guess. We'll all go see the new Black Widow movie when that comes out.
Yeah,
It has nothing to do with spiders, but...
Yeah.
yeah, but you got to come back next week. We'll have a new podcast out for you.
Love you, Jacoby.
Yeah.
This has been the
love,
most
Jacoby.
recent episode. Well, we're tuning out. We're signing off of this episode of the Jacoby Podcast. Your girlfriend's a cutie. Is she 18?
I'm expecting a comment from Jacoby. Someone's got to fill him in. Well, everyone, thanks for listening to this week's episode. Click on screen now on, one side to watch last week's episode.
That side right there.
Oh, yeah, on that side. Click that side. It's got last week's link. This other side, the other one that you're now looking at, that's got the playlist of all the
The
episodes
side
of the
that doesn't
podcast.
have the side with the last week's.
Yeah, not the last week's side, but the playlist side. And what's that fucking button in the middle? It's the subscribe button. Press that while you're at it.
I hope
Come
that this
on.
That's in
outro-
between the two sides.
I hope this outro goes on longer than 20 seconds so that the things that we're talking about don't pop up right
Well,
away.
maybe now that Ertl the Turtle spit out that fucking sentence, it's going to be longer than 20 seconds. Brief recap. This is how it ends. One side of the screen got last week. The other side of the screen, you've got the playlist right in the middle. That's the fucking
You just
subscribe
need these
button.
links.